They kind of positioned me in this place right between a whole bunch of really smart people. And I get to do it while you guys are having lunch. So hopefully the lunch goes down okay during this. But, as I thought about this talk today and what my research interests are, it's very different from the scientific stuff that you guys have been hearing today, right? And you've got some more to come about genetics. That is some fascinating material. And mine is kind of what other folks who I do research with call the touchy-feely stuff, right? What are the things that we can do in our lives to improve quality of life while we have Parkinson's, right? We've got all the meds. We've got all kinds of different treatments that we can be engaged in. But what's that Indo-Subramanian calls it the secret sauce? What is it that makes life better, right? And so that's kind of where I come in. I'm fascinated by psychology. I'm fascinated by things that I can do in my own home that can improve my quality of life, right? We know exercise works. We know levodopa works. We know Apathy, all these other drugs that we heard about. We know they're effective. That's great. But how can you sitting at home make difference in your life, right? So that's where I come in. One of the research areas that I am fascinated by is meaning in life. And let me find my thing here. Okay, I don't know how many of you know who Viktor Frankl is. He is a fascinating individual. He was a psychiatrist. He and his family did time in a German concentration camp during World War II. His whole family was killed, and he survived. And after he got out, he wrote this book called Man's Search for Meaning. And he accounts why he believes that he lived. And it was because he had meaning. He had something to look forward to when he got out. He watched all of these people who struggled in the camp and died. And he thought, why am I different from this guy sitting next to me who died, who succumbed to this challenge that they're facing? And so he came out and wrote a whole bunch of books and has a counseling intervention called logotherapy, which is just a therapy that's designed to help people find meaning in life. And so I've spent a lot of time studying Dr. Frankl. And I've just got a few quotes here that talk about the significance of meaning in life from his perspective. When we're no longer able to change a situation, we're challenged to change ourselves. That's what Parkinson's is, right? You can't change it. It is what it is. And what begins to happen is, how do we look at it and what can I do about it? Those who have a why to live for can bear almost any how. The why is the purpose. The why is the meaning. Maybe it's your work. Maybe it's your spirituality. Maybe it's grandkids. Maybe it's your spouse. I don't know what it is. The cool thing is you get to define that, right? You get to figure out what makes your life meaningful. In some ways, suffering ceases to be suffering at the moment one finds meaning, right? We begin to understand that things happen to us in life. We all have challenges that we have to deal with. How I deal with that challenge is what makes all the difference. And finding meaning tends to attenuate those sufferings. And the last one, life is never made unbearable by circumstances, but only by a lack of meaning and purpose. Those are some pretty powerful statements, right? And I'm going to walk through some of the literature here that talks about meaning in life. I'm going to give you a few definitions early on. But one of the things that I get whenever I have this conversation with different groups, I believe that there are a lot of things that are affected the moment you hear that diagnosis when you're in your movement disorders office, right? You hear you have Parkinson's disease. Wow. I have a mom who has Parkinson's, so I get it. That was the impetus for I went back to grad school late in life, got a PhD just to study Parkinson's disease to help my mom. My sole purpose. I remember what it was like when she called me and she told me, Brad, I have Parkinson's. At the time, I knew kind of what Parkinson's, right? I've seen the picture of the old guy hunched over with the cane, right? That we all see that we're trying to get rid of at this point. But because it's not just a disease of aging individuals anymore, right? A lot of young people get it too. And so these are some things that I think that many of you have probably dealt with. Uncertainty. Now what? I've got this diagnosis. Everything's changing. What now? What about potential loss of employment? Depending on your age, where you find yourself, you might still be working, you might not. If you are working, do I remain working? Do I tell my employer? Right? There are all kinds of things that go through your mind that are challenging. What about role changes in the family? If you're working and you're the primary breadwinner, either man or woman, doesn't matter, right? Now maybe that changes. Now maybe instead of being the caretaker, you're the one who needs to be taken care of. Challenging. What about interruptions in activities you once enjoyed? Maybe there are activities that you were involved in the community that you loved. Maybe you were in a cycling group and you liked to go cycling with friends, and now because of your gait problems and your balance, we know cycling's good for PD, right? We know this. However, there are some things that need to be taken into consideration as this disease comes on. And the decrease in social participation, the stigma, right, that's associated with any chronic illness. Whether you feel it or not, unfortunately, it's a society that we live in, and it happens. And sometimes it's brought on by ourselves, and sometimes it's somebody else stigmatizing us. But those things are challenging. So this is kind of the impetus for why I wanted to talk about some of this stuff. So a little bit of background. Positive psychology. You guys have probably heard that term before. Sorry, I have a hard time standing still. I was just talking to one of the other presenters. I needed that little headpiece that guy just had on in the video that he could move around, because this is challenging for me. So positive psychology, what is it? Scientific study of optimal human functioning. Here we go. It's what makes life good, what makes my life better, right? For many, many years, the medical model looked at what was wrong with people, and that was how we diagnosed it. You would go to a doctor, they would diagnose you with a disease, and that was the problem, and now we fix the problem. Positive psychology flips that, and it begins looking at what are the abilities that you still have. What are the things that you have in your life that you can capitalize on to improve your overall functioning, right? That's the difference. Now, this began years ago. Positive psychology, Martin Seligman, he was kind of the guy 20 years ago who was famous for making positive psychology popular. But well before him was a rehabilitation psychologist named Beatrice Wright. She was at the forefront, in fact, well ahead of her time in understanding what happens when someone is diagnosed with chronic illness or encounters a disability, right? And some of the things that she talked about is having these positive value changes, right? Beginning to look at what are the things in my life that I still have that I can value. Rather than being focused on, I used to be able to do these things, now I can't, now I'm depressed, now I become apathetic, right? Let's look at what you do have. Or maybe we find some things that you didn't know you could do, and now you can do it and you love it, right? It's what else do we have in our lives? The other thing that was critically important that she talked about back in 1983 was positive coping versus succumbing. Do I effectively cope with the situation I've been given, or do I just give up and succumb, right? You have a choice, right? We all have choices with everything that we encounter in our lives. How are we going to fight it, or are we going to give up, right? And so the cool thing is I'm hoping today that I can give you some tools, that I can help you understand that there are ways that you can cope more effectively. And we really look at it, it's not bad or good coping, it's adaptive and maladaptive coping. It's what things make my life better and result in better outcomes. And so these are some of the things that I want to talk about as we go along today. So this is positive psychology. I just thought you needed to understand where I'm coming from. And so as the title, really what I talk about is meaning in life. So that's what we're going to dig into now. And there's some fascinating stuff. This comes from a guy named Michael Steger. He is probably one of the top 3 or 4 meaning researchers in the world. He's at Colorado State University. He, along with Paul Wong, Crystal Park, there are a number of people who have spent a long time talking about meaning in life. And over the last decade, it has exploded. Prior to, 2000, probably 2010, 2009, there really wasn't much. Now it's everywhere. And what I can tell you in a nutshell, if all you hear from this talk today, meaning in life improves everything. The data's clear, and I'm going to show you some of the data. Unbelievably strong data. The challenge is we don't have it in people with Parkinson's disease. And if you understand how research works, I can't say, well, we've showed it in people with MS, therefore it's also true in people with Parkinson's disease. Research community doesn't like that. They want to say, how do you know? And so I'm doing that research right now as we speak. One of the studies I hoped that I would be able to share, it's done, it's being reviewed right now for a journal that shows that people who have higher meaning in life have decreased apathy. Big deal, right? Because what do we do to treat apathy? If any of you have experienced, you probably get the same answer that every doctor gives you. Well, I'm going to try this. We'll see. They try a cholinesterase inhibitor. Well, that didn't work. Let's try an SSRI and see if that works. Well, let's try some more dopamine. You're already taking enough, but let's just up it and see what happens, right? Now you've got dyskinesias, and we've got all kinds of other problems. So that's what we know about meaning in life. So let's talk about what it is actually, right? It helps to be able to define. There we go. So it's also important to understand the difference between meaning of life and meaning in life. Meaning of life is this philosophical, esoteric thing. What is meaning of life? I don't know, right? Philosophers love to have debates over a beer about this kind of stuff. Talk about meaning of life. Wow, that's deep and that's meaningful. Yeah, it is, but we can't measure it, right? Science wants to be able to measure things. And if I don't have a survey or an instrument to be able to measure a given variable or construct, I can't research it, right? Or I've got to develop something myself. So meaning of life is not something that I'm terribly concerned with. What I am concerned with is meaning in life. What is your meaning in life? And it's really a subjective judgment. And that's why people in the hard sciences, the neurologists who publish, who are really, really big into the science go, yeah, you're talking about something that's a subjective evaluation of someone's life. It's like I ask you, do you think your life's meaningful? And you go, yes. I go, great, she's got meaning in life, right? Scientists don't like that because it's not objective, right? We want to have something that I can show that they have meaning in life. And so that's what we're going to spend our time talking about here. Domain level meaning, we're going to talk about this at the end. Where do people find meaning in life, right? The three biggest areas that you'll find in research: relationships, spirituality, religiosity, whatever you want to call it, and work. Not necessarily a theologic spirituality, right? It's how you define that. And so those three things are common across all people who are surveyed, all the research that's been done looking at sources of meaning. Those three things rise to the top every time. So as a little teaser, if you want to find more meaning in life, work on those areas, potentially, right? We're going to talk about some other areas, but these are ways that you can do it. Research indicate that traumatic life events may result in changes to one's meaning in life. Pretty simple. To me, that's a pretty logical statement, right? I think it makes total sense. I think you talk to enough people, as I've been here, I've talked to other presenters, other neurologists, and these are the things that you talk about, right? You can only give so many meds. There's only so much that a neurologist can do with a patient, but when your meaning in life has been taken away, wow, there's that void. There's that hole inside that we've got to find something to fill that hole with, right? And that's kind of what I'm interested in. A clear sense of meaning, purpose can add something positive regardless of your circumstance or health condition. Again, I say these things over and over because I want them to stick. It matters. When you're diagnosed with PD, you experience stress, you experience trauma. It's debatable. If I talk to a psychiatrist and I'm wanting to tell them that this is a traumatic experience, they're going to debate me. And they're going to say, no, that's not trauma, but I argue that it absolutely is trauma. And there's something that's challenging that you've experienced that's making a difference in your life. So now, how do we determine whether or not one has meaning? Right? There have been a variety of instruments that have been developed over the years. Started in 1963, meaning in life test, two guys, Crumbaugh and Mahalik. And that was the first venture into meaning in life measurement, being able to actually say, if someone takes this scale and they score this score, then they have meaning in life. If they score below this threshold, they don't. There were some issues with that psychometrically, and the scale wasn't that great. And so we've evolved and evolved. We've got about 8 scales out right now. Another one that is getting ready to come out, Michael Steger, who I talked about, whose name you see right here. He and Frank Martela have a meaning in life scale, a new one that's just being ready to be released. So when we define meaning in life, here's how we define it. Does your life have significance? That's up to you. That's you answering that question. What does that mean, that your life matters? Do you feel like your life matters at least to something or someone else? If you do, then you likely have significance. That's one component of meaning in life. I have inherent value, and I matter. The second piece is coherence. The degree to which people believe that their life makes sense. Does the way that my life has played out, the things that I've engaged in, the experiences I have, do they kind of make sense? Maybe in light of the meaning of life question. Does it just make sense when I look at my life, right? That's kind of an arbitrary question. It's teased out a little bit in the instruments that we use to measure. But nonetheless, you're just saying, does it make sense? Do I understand my place in the world, the things that I'm doing with my family, my work? And lastly is purpose. Now, here's kind of the debate that takes place among people who research meaning. Is it meaning or is it purpose that matters? Yes, right, that's the answer. And some people will argue that purpose is the main construct that I need to be looking at. Others say meaning is the main construct I need to be looking at. I fall into the camp that meaning is the main construct, purpose is a subscale of meaning. Because I believe that if I have a purpose in my life, something that's a goal that I'm shooting for, then meaning results from that, not the other way around. So it's a debate. It's up for, you can read, if you're interested, the literature on that. Most people today are beginning or have begun to sway to the side saying that meaning is the larger construct, the higher order construct, if you will, of meaning in life. So the purpose, do I have goals? Do I have valued goals in my life? Do I have the goal of being a great spouse, a good grandparent? Do I have goals that I want to be a better golfer, right? Fill in the blank. That's the cool thing about meaning is you get to choose. It's all up to you. You decide what it is that you think gives your life meaning and you do more of it. Solution-focused therapy is a counseling intervention that I teach my students about all the time. And it's the essence of that therapy is if something works, do more of it. If it doesn't work, stop. Novel, right? I mean, I shouldn't have to tell someone that if it's working. My daughter will call me with a problem that she's having, and that's what I'll tell her. Is what you're doing working? No, Dad, it's not. Well, what do you think you should do? Stop it? Yeah, right? I mean, and that's the essence of what we're talking about here. So in other words, meaning in life shows that I'm worth it, shows that my life makes sense, and shows that there's a purpose. All of those things combined determine whether or not, on an instrument, on a measure, that I have meaning in life, right? It's a good thing. How good is it? Let me show you. Higher meaning in life is associated with more positive emotions. It's not bad. How about positive personality traits? Extroversion, agreeableness, right? Things that are valued. We could say neuroticism, but that's gotten a negative connotation, so people don't want to be known as neurotic. So but it fits, right? Life satisfaction. Simple, subjective question. Are you satisfied with your life? Yes or no? Dichotomous. People who say yes report higher meaning in life. Across the board. Pretty good. It gets better. Just wait. Self-esteem and self-worth. Right? Big deal. identity, right? I don't spend a lot of time in this talking about identity, but the interventions that are used to help someone find or improve meaning in life are almost to a technique based on identity and improving your personal identity, who you are, right? Because when we experience these challenging things, sometimes we become about our Parkinson's disease rather than a person who has Parkinson's disease, right? Parkinson's disease is part of who you are. It just is. There's no way around it. But it isn't who you are. It's one component. Just like being a man or a woman is part of who you are, right? And so the more that we can improve self-esteem, self-worth, when we see those things go up, people participate in society more. People are more comfortable going to different groups. People are comfortable going to exercise groups because they're not thinking that I don't have it in me, I just can't do it. There's no way that I can do what these people are doing. As your self-esteem, as your self-agency, as your self-worth begins to go up, you begin engaging in these things. And it's a positive cycle, right? You have the ability to want to go engage in this. After you engage in this, those things get better and you want to go more, right? It's like depression. Depression's one of the things that prevents people from engaging in society, to going to exercise class. And I tell this from experience because of my mom. I don't feel like going, Brad. I get it. I understand depression. The solution to that is to go, right? But therein lies the problem, is how do I get them over that first step, that hump, to show up where these folks can show you what they do and show you how good you can feel, and then it's easier and easier to get over that hump, right? Positive coping, right? We talked about Beatrice Wright, coping versus succumbing. Meaning in life, people who have meaning in life cope with day-to-day problems better than those who don't. The stressors that come up in life, all of those things that we encounter every day. How am I going to deal with this problem? It doesn't become insurmountable when you have meaning in life because you put it in perspective, right? We begin to look at things kind of as they are, as they come. I'm in the moment. I'm not worrying about yesterday. I'm not worrying about tomorrow. Dr. Butterfield a little while ago was talking about mindfulness, right? She talked about mindfulness and meditation. What a great tool. What a great tool to remain in the moment, to deal with what's in front of you in a positive manner. Hope. If I asked a survey who wants more hope, I think every hand would go up, right? Hope is a good thing, part of positive psychology. Psychological capital is something that I studied. I did my dissertation on it, and it's hope, optimism, resilience, and self-efficacy. All of those things are great. You have more of those things, you function better. When we have hope, we have a reason to get up the next day. We have a reason to be involved in life because there's something good. I don't know when it's going to happen, but I have hope that something good's going to happen in my life. Strongly associated with meaning in life. There's the optimism one, right? I don't know about you, but I love being around people who are optimistic. Nothing steals my joy more than someone who's pessimistic. And it's great to experience that. People who are optimistic take chances. They do things. They are very much more so involved in their own lives because they're just waiting, like hope, for that next great thing to happen. Resilience. You know how familiar you are with resilience. All that is the ability to bounce back. You have some adversity in your life, and you can bounce back from it and get back to this set level, how you used to be, right? The me pre-adversity. Resilience is great because we always experience adversity in life. And it's how do I walk through that adversity and come out on the other end, maybe even better than I was before. That's a whole nother talk. That's post-traumatic growth. It's a whole nother construct that's fascinating that we see people who go through adversity, who are high in resilience, they come out better psychologically after they've gone through their trauma. It's what Viktor Frankl did. Better health-related quality of life. Again, who doesn't want that? Again, solid, positive correlation. More meaning in life, more quality of life. And better well-being, right? Successful aging. Plenty of studies on that. Who doesn't want that, right? I'll take this whole list all day. Give me those things on that list, and I would argue that my life's going to be pretty good. I'm still going to have adversity. I'm still going to have disease. I'm still going to have things that are challenging in my life, but I bet you I deal better with them if I have those things in my pocket. Here's the other side of the list. Those are all the great things. Meaning in life is associated with less physical decline and decline in cognitive functioning in older adults. Wow. That's pretty impressive to say that. Cognitive decline is less in people who have meaning in life. Interesting. Less PTSD. Increased meaning in life, lower PTSD. Less hypertension. You have high blood pressure, find meaning and see what happens. Maybe you don't need the ACE inhibitors anymore, I don't know. Potentially, but right, that's great. If you can get rid of a pill doing something like this, I'm game for that. Less negative affect, that's mood. Just less being down, being grumpy, being sad. You have meaning in life because, right, we saw on the previous slide, optimism and hope. So it makes sense. They're opposites, right? Less depression, less clinical depression when you have higher meaning in life, right? Dr. Butterfield talked about that earlier. That depression is, we know how common that is in people with PD. It's common prodromal, right? Before PD is ever diagnosed, many people have depression already coming in the door. Maybe we can get rid of it with meaning in life interventions. It would make sense, right? Your optimism goes up, your hope goes up. That's going to counteract some of that depression. Not saying you can stop all your depression meds, but you've really got nothing to lose. Less anxiety. Another problem that we see common, right? Suicidal ideation, thoughts of suicide. Life gets bad, dealing with really challenging things. Is life worth living anymore? People who have higher meaning in life say, yeah, it is worth living. Now I'm going to keep going. Less substance abuse. Very common in people with chronic illness and disability. Because why? You're trying to find a way to cope. You find something that works, you start drinking a lot. You don't have to deal with your problems, right? Maybe even trimmer gets better. If you have some essential trimmer, it might get better when you drink. I don't know. But that's talked about, right, in the medical community. Less substance abuse. Less need for therapy. Less need to go see someone like me and sit down and talk about the problems that you're having. And as if there needs to be more, right? I mean, that's pretty impressive couple of lists. Lower mortality. I'll give you a second to think about that one because it's a big deal. Lower mortality. How do we know? So Patricia Boyle and colleagues back in 2009 did a study. They looked at people who were 65 and older. And they said, we want to take the people who score in the highest 10% of meaning in life score versus those who score in the lowest 10%. And we want to look at mortality over 5 years. So it's a longitudinal study, which means they start it today, and 5 years from today, we end it. And we look at what the results were. Longitudinal studies are always the most powerful. Most of the stuff that we do is called cross-sectional, where I look at a point in time today, how are you? We want longitudinal. So again, highest 10%, lowest 10%. At the end of 5 years, those who had the highest 10% meaning in life score had a 57% lower hazard ratio of death. Wow. That's a big deal. So you can get all the other good things that I said, plus you can still live. And you know what's cool is that if you have meaning in life, not only do you live, but you live abundantly. You live an enjoyable life. You're not living a life of misery and I'm frustrated and this life sucks and I get it. I get it going through that. But man, that's a powerful point to say that. So now we get to the operative question. So what? That's what I tell my students, right? I've got graduate students who turn in work to me and they'll give me something they copied out of a textbook. And my response is, so what? How do you apply that to life? How do I apply all this stuff that you just learned about meaning in life to answer the question, so what? So I can identify it. What do I do about it? Well, I'm going to tell you what you can do about it. How to develop meaning. Work on. I told you at the beginning, there are a variety of ways that people find meaning in life. Variety of places. What are they? Relationships. We'll go through these quick. We're kind of running out. Relationships, spiritual, religiosity, work, occupation, health. Getting involved with this stuff, right? Maybe that becomes your meaning. Maybe you're one of the people who says, I'm going to go to one of these classes. I'm going to be there on a regular, and I'm going to be an example for some of those people who think they can't do it. Because what I can tell you is meaning in life happens also in relationship, right? That's number one on the list. Community involvement. You could find meaning in nature. I mean, heck, I'm from Texas, and I come here, and I saw this beautiful boardwalk out here. The river walk, it's gorgeous. Just go out there and walk and enjoy being in nature. Find something that makes you feel peaceful, passionate. Education. Not necessarily a formal education. Maybe you just start reading books. You want to learn about something, you read a book about it. Read Man's Search for Meaning. You'll love it. I've never met anybody who read that book who wasn't moved. Fascinating book. Community, right? This, what we have right here, how much was lost during COVID, right? I've done some writing and some publishing recently looking at loneliness and the role that it played in COVID. It was huge. Depression skyrocketed, anxiety skyrocketed, the motor symptoms of Parkinson's disease skyrocketed. Was it because their disease progressed? Probably not. Was it because the added stress on their life? Yeah, I'm sure it was. The anxiety of not being able to connect with friends that you used to connect with? Yeah, probably so. Organizations and activities, right? Get involved in something. My mom is retired, she's 75, and she spends a day a week working at a homeless shelter just because she loves it. She wants to engage with people. She feels valued being there. Hobbies. Find a hobby that you love. Get involved in it. So you got that list, right? What do? Think about that list and ask yourself, how are things going in those areas in your life? Do you have one or multiple where you find meaning? It's just an inside question. If you don't, find one. Work on it. Do more of what you deem meaningful, right? If spirituality is something that's meaningful to you, engage deeper with that. If relationships are meaningful to you, engage more in relationships. Be there. Be present. Engage in activities with others. Goes right back to the relationship question, right? When we help other people find their meaning, we find ours. Which is strange, right? You got to give it away to keep it. You guys may have heard that. When we do that, we find more meaning. Altruism. Share your experience with other people. Get in community with people, whether it's at an exercise group, whether it's at a PD support group, whether it's an online group, whatever it is, engage with other people and share how things are going in your life. Talk about what's working. You might be the only person who can influence that person sitting across from you, or that person at the gym who's going there. They don't want to be there. They don't think they can do it. They need you to say, yes, you can, because I've been there, and I'm doing it now. I talked about this. Help others foster their meaning. Something powerful happens when we engage with other people. And we say, hey, I'm here for you. I'm here to support you. It ends up becoming a symbiotic relationship where we both help each other. And that's the goal, right? We're not in this fight alone. There are millions of people who are working toward a cure. I'm always cautious to say that word because I've had this discussion earlier, and I'll leave it. But as we're working towards new therapies, that's a better term, new therapies to maybe help the progression, disease modifying like we see in MS, right? And practice regular self-reflection. Continually ask yourself, how am I doing in these areas in my life? Can I improve? If you can, do more of that. If you're not doing well, find something that helps you do better. Read inspirational books. Powerful. I gave you the first one, Man's Search for Meaning. Read it, see what you think. I think it'll move you. And that's it. 3 seconds to go. Good timing. Thank you.